All right, good morning, Foxes. We are getting ready to roll here on our part 2 of our project. So this is what the finished project will look like, or one way that you could finish it. This is where we stopped yesterday, and this is your template. So started on part 1 with creating your template with a black Sharpie, basically. And you have 7 sections. You have shape, color, texture, value, space, form, and line. For the second half of your project, you are simply going to create an example in each section of these elements. So the first one is line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of shift this up here and begin working. And simply you can create anything with line. So you have been working with line for like 3 weeks now. And I just did the simplest form of things, which is starting with different types of lines. I've got a skinny line. I might have a broken line in here. We also call this an implied line. I might have a zigzag line because there are also examples of geometric shaped lines. Maybe I will have a line shaped kind of like a river. And I also maybe want to go in now, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see this a little bit better. I feel like my arm is going to fall in my lap here. And maybe make some thicker lines as well. And line variation is where you make lines thicker and thinner. So that is what you're seeing with this particular line, is line variation. And same with this one. They do that a lot in sequential art, which is basically a fancy name for comic book art, where you make certain areas thicker or thinner based on whether they are at an angle or not. You know, like turning kind of thing. So you would just go in there with different shapes and lines. Alright, I am going to, at this point, I'm going to do a really tiny line that looks like a heart monitor because I can. So that is how you would decorate basically your first shape, or your first area, which would be line. The second one would be shape. And so I'm going to go in and do different shapes or forms. So I'm going to make some, like a circle, make a square, make a rectangle, make a peanut shape, you know, like the packaging stuff. I could make a star, I could make a heart. So I'm just basically decorating with shapes for that one. And you could go back in like I did with mine and add texture or design. I think I just put some little squigglies inside to make it interesting. You know, elements of design are important, but you could also make it pretty basic. Alright, so there's shape. The next thing I did was texture. And for the texture one, I did the texture of a brick. You can do anything. You could do the texture of a feather, since you guys are familiar with the feather. You could do textures of fur, scales, whatever. I think for this one, I've already done the brick. So I'm going to show you how to do brick because I think that is one of those things that's necessary for you guys to learn how to do. So I'm making the brick. I'm going to start with a line and then boop, and I'm going to double it, and I'm going to make several lines in the same way. And this is actually the mortar in between the bricks. Alright, and then I'm going to start with creating the mortar in between my first layer of bricks here. Can't really see that one because it's being blocked or covered up. But check this out. The next one is going to be about right here. And in between half of the other brick is where you're going to put your mortar. So for here, and you're going to follow this back up. So if it's right there, then your next one would be in the center of this, in the center of this, follow this down. Alright, so I've created the bricks now, And then with texture, now you got to go back in and make it look like it's a rough edge. So I did that by creating dots and little rough areas in here. So, and I'm not going to bore you with doing the whole thing, but you kind of get the idea of the texture, whatever texture you would like. Okay, for the next one, form. Form is the shape of a volume of something. Okay, so in this case, it's showing like three-dimensional shape. So I'm going to start with a square. Whoops, sorry. Start with a square. This is a little bit difficult for some people, so I'm going to kind of work it slow. You're going to go out like this on three sides, and then you follow it around. Remember, you can pause if you don't understand how to do this. Another thing would be a triangle, and if I had a shape like that, then I have to add another edge on it. If you have a cylinder, which is a rolling form, you might have a triangle, and then the triangle is going to go back behind itself. But this is just an example of, if we had like a little cube, it might be long and skinny, like that. But just examples of different types of form, okay? So this is a work with geometric shapes. Alright, so when you feel like you have enough, we could put a circle in there. That actually accounts for some of it. Okay, so just form our different shapes, and you can look those up if you want to. You don't have to copy mine. And then the next one is color. And so what I did is I separated this into 7 different, or 6 different sections, you know, for Roy G. Biv, which is your color. So one for red, one little strip for red, one little strip for orange, and I'm going to just follow it all the way down. Strip for yellow would be next. Green will follow. This is your color wheel, so everyone should know these. Green. And then this is going to be your blue, and then that's going to be left over for your purple. And then you would color this rainbow across: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple, or violet, I guess we should say. And that is your Roy G. Biv, okay, for your colors. And then your next one is going to be value. And what I did with value is I broke it into sections, like you see here. And value is from dark to light. So you're going to actually use a graphite pencil or a pencil for this portion to shade in. And for all of you guys who are in class or who had received a packet, you have this little Prismacolor, which is one of my favorite tools. But basically, I'm just breaking this into sections for you so that you can see. And I'm just going to take the time to do one section for you. But if I do this section right here, I'm going to start at one edge, and I'm going to color dark. It helps if you kind of do it on the side if you want to. And then as I move forward, I'm going to lighten it up as I go. You can do this in a circular motion, and it gets a smoother look. And that is your value. If you want to, you can get a tortillon or a piece of paper. This is, remember, this is what a tortillon looks like. It is just a rolled piece of paper. And then you're going to smooth it out best you can, and it'll turn into a value scale. And again, value scale goes from the darkest dark to the lightest light. And you would just do that in each one of these little squares like that. And the very last one is the hardest. This is space. Space accounts for distance or perspective, and my space was the railroad track. So what you're going to do for that is you have got to, first of all, have a horizon line. The horizon line is where the distance of the land and the sky meet. And then if you were looking down a railroad track, it would go like this. You know, coming towards you, it's going to be wider. As it goes into the distance, it's going to be skinnier. and farther away. And then you're going to start with the tracks. And the tracks are going to get a little bigger as they come towards you. And then on the tracks, they're going to gradually get closer and closer and closer together until they are into the distance there. Alright, and the same with the telephone poles. The telephone poles will be close at first, and as they go back into the distance, they're going to be closer together and smaller. And then you can put some trees back there if you want to. Put some sky and fill it in. If you want to put a little house down here to show, like a little railroad depot kind of thing, to show that it goes off into the distance, you can. But again, you're dealing with perspective and space. Alright, so here you go. We can even put a little road that goes into nowhere if you want to. Everything in the front of the picture is going to be larger, and everything is going to be smaller as it goes back into the distance. Okay, so those are your elements of art once again, and this is your project, your 2-day project. It may take you a little bit longer. I got kind of crazy with mine because design is also important. So you can do this any way you want to. You don't have to do it exactly like mine. You can do any example of form, any example of space, value, texture, line, shape, or color. You do not have to do, you could do squares or whatever with your color wheel. But basically, here's what you're doing. So day 1, or part 1, is going to be your template. Part 2 is going to be the coloring and the creating of your elements on there to create your finished project. And anytime you are worried or wondering what the elements of art, then bam, here it is. Alright, so I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I know that's kind of a long demo, but there was a lot of information in there. So I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and happy drawing!